Yo, what's going on, guys? It's your boy. Welcome back to another video. So I just saw the movie, The Ministry for Ungentlemanly Warfare. Let's talk about it, shall we?
Modern movie review.
Okay, so I'm going to start off by saying, spoiler alert for anybody who has not seen the movie. I do not think that this is a movie that could potentially be ruined for you via spoilers, because not a lot of major things really happen in this movie. But that being said, if you haven't seen the movie and you are somebody who's concerned that, this movie might potentially be ruined for you, maybe save this video for later and come watch it after you've seen the movie. But that being said, we're going to dive right into this. So, right off the bat, I do want to go ahead and say one thing. This is a Guy Ritchie movie. I don't know if I've seen any Guy Ritchie movies, if I'm being totally honest, but this movie does have a very distinct style to it, which I do really like. I think that the direction and the tones and the way that they decide to film some of the violence and the way that they have a lot of the comedic aspects in this movie do feel very unique, and I did really enjoy that aspect of it. And for the most part, this is a very dumb, just turn off your brain and enjoy the movie kind of movie, which I was a very big fan of. I think that the action in this movie is great, and if that's what you're going for, you're going to absolutely enjoy this movie. Something that I do kind of want to address early on in this video is some people who see the trailers for this movie and know that this movie is based off of a true story might be a little concerned about going to see it and like, oh my god, is this going to be like a biopic? Is there going to be a lot of historical stuff that's happening in this movie? And I do want to go ahead and say, for the most part, I think that they really do not share a lot of the historical elements of stuff that is happening in this movie. This movie obviously takes place during World War II because they're killing a bunch of Nazis, and there's a lot of the stuff that's going on with Germany overtaking certain, territories and stuff like that. But for the most part, you do not get too far into it. You will see Winston Churchill, and you will see some of the behind-the-scenes stuff of the people who are calling the shots for this overall, overtaking and this interesting little battle that's happening. But that being said, it's not super historical. So if you're somebody who's like, I'm into action, but I'm not really into history, you can definitely go see this movie, and you will still enjoy it. And yeah. That being said, I do kind of want to talk about the action a little bit here, and I want to go ahead and say something that I think is interesting. A lot of action movies, I feel like they're really there are some intense scenes, there's a lot of really close hands-on fight sequences where it kind of feels like our people who are following in this story could potentially die at any given point. This movie has none of that. This movie, I feel like, is very void of stakes, very void of character depth, and a lot of stuff like that. So, if you're looking for somebody who's going to have a little bit of a deeper story, if you're looking to see potentially good connections between characters and stuff like that, it's not really going to happen in this movie. But that being said, the action for the most part makes up for that lack of depth, I believe, because there's a lot of big fight sequences. We start off with a fight sequence that's very interesting, and we kind of get a general vibe of how the characters in this movie are going to be just taking down giant groups of people. Like, our team that we're following for the most part is a team of 5 guys, and they are mowing down hundreds and hundreds of Nazis, and it is incredibly fun to watch. I think that a great way to kind of describe this action to people who haven't seen the movie is it's kind of like you're watching somebody who's insanely good at a video game, and they're just completely in their element, and they are just absolutely destroying everybody, and not at a single point does it feel like they are going to lose because they're just that dominant in it. And I think that there's a lot of fun in that. I think that there's a lot of great gory moments that you would definitely enjoy. I feel like this movie is rated R, but it doesn't really feel that rated R. I will say, if you're going to potentially see gory death scenes, there's not a lot. Alan Ritchson's character does get covered in blood quite a bit, but for the most part, a lot of the bloodier sequences are happening at night, so you can't really see a lot of gore or anything like that. So if you're going for that, you're going to be a little underwhelmed, but for the most part, the action is dumb, fast-paced, incredibly fun. There's a lot more guns and stuff involved. I don't know why I think of World War II, I think of them not having guns. I forget World War II is something that happened in the last 100 years and not 300 years ago. But there's a lot of fun little action set pieces where it's just them going onto a boat real quickly and just killing every single person who's on board. And that's the first sequence. They have one of those. One of the third act sequences, we have moments like that. And that stuff, I think, works incredibly well. Like I said, it's a bunch of just shut your brain off and enjoy the people fighting each other. And that's fun. Overall, the story is very simple and to the point. It's just, hey guys, you guys are on this mission. You guys need to... yeah, I'm gonna quickly just run down the story, actually, because I realized the way that I was about to break it down, I feel like I was about to skip a lot of important moments. But basically, the overall premise, the people in Germany are kind of being absolute a-holes, and they're not doing anything respectfully. And when it comes to war, I think that a lot of people try to be noble. A lot of the heads and the leads and stuff like that, they kind of have these unspoken rules of war, hey, don't do this, hey, don't do that. And Germany is kind of being a jerk because they have their German U-boats and they're sinking a lot of ships that are just bringing in a bunch of supplies, some that are just bringing in regular people, and stuff that's just overall not stuff that has to do with the war. And so Britain is kind of getting really upset because Germany is not playing by the rules, so they start to think, why should we play by the rules? So that's part of the reason why a lot of these fight sequences, our guys really do kind of have the upper hand, even though there's way less of them, is because they're sneaking into places where they're not technically supposed to be fighting, and they're fighting a lot of, like, Nazi people who are just kind of, like, chilling out on, like, military bases, and they're not actually ready for war. There's some sequences where there's, like, literally, like, a bunch of Nazis, like, in a classroom just kind of, like, learning about stuff, and they're just, like, wiping out hordes of them and hordes of them, and it is really fun to watch. Like, it is great. But for the most part, we're just following this group of men. They're going from Britain on a little sailboat to a island that I believe is in like South Africa, West Africa. It's probably West Africa. And they're trying to sink this ship that is supplying all of the U-boats and stuff like that. They're trying to just basically wipe out their supply line. So that way Germany has to give up their U-boats and kind of actually fight fair for once. And I feel like that story, like I said, very straightforward. It's very interesting, but there's nothing too exciting there. And I feel like this movie takes place over the time span of like 3 weeks, but you really only see like, here's stuff that happens in the first 2 days that they're on the water, and then here's the stuff that happens at the end. And I think it's great, and I think it works, but it's just, like, really weird that they're like, here's this giant 18-day journey, and it's going to be, like, a very, like, rough time for them sailing, and then we don't experience any of that rough time with them sailing. But, yeah, now I'm just going to go ahead and talk about the third final act fight sequences and kind of just, like, give my final input, because, like I said, this movie is a lot of just fun action, and then there's a lot of, like, small exposition dumps, and we kind of have, like, a subplot that's going on with a girl and a guy that are British spies who work on the little island where the supply ship is being held. And there's some interesting stuff with there. Like, there's a little bit of tension and a lot of stuff that, like, for once it finally kind of feels like somebody might potentially be in danger. And it adds a little bit of stakes to this movie. And then, like, immediately after that, they have the main female character show off that she's secretly a badass and is really good with handguns. And all of that tension is immediately dropped. But now to kind of get to the final act, though, our crew, who's on the sailboat for a really long time, kind of connect with another group of people. It's about like 10 men or something like that. And they just go on to this ship. They realize that the entire plan is to go sink the ship, but they can't sink it. So instead they steal it, which I think is really interesting, and the way that they do it is fun. But first they have to hijack the ship, get onto it, kill all of the people on board, and we get to see a lot of fun action sequences with Henry Cavil going around and like shooting a bunch of the people who are actually on land, and then Alan Ritchson and his group of people killing a bunch of people who are on the ship. And the majority of kills that Alan Ritchson's character has are like melee with like a little knife that he has, or bow and arrow. And I will say this, I think that is part of the most exciting thing about this movie, is Alan Ritchson plays kind of like a flamboyant killer, and his nickname is like the Heart Stealer or something like that, because he carves out some of the people that he kills hearts. And one line that he has specifically that I think actually went so hard is, I'm not leaving until I have a barrel full of, I think he said a whiskey barrel full of Nazi hearts or something like that, which I thought was just a dope line. But yeah, he, for the most part, is using a small knife and bow and arrows, and he's just killing so many people, and he is just such a badass. I absolutely loved him in this movie. I think that he 100% steals the show for a lot of people who are going to see this for, like, Henry Cavil and how amazing Henry Cavil is. He has a couple of fun moments, but for the most part, Alan Ritchson is the best part of this movie, without a doubt. He's incredibly funny, he's incredibly charming, and like I said, all of his action sequences are hilarious, and he's just mowing down Nazi after Nazi after Nazi with a little knife and a little bow and arrow. And then at one point he steals an axe and literally murders a room full of like 10 people. And when he's done violently murdering them, he looks up and sees that his guys are just kind of like staring at him, and then he waves with the axe, and it's so funny. But yeah, overall, I had a really good time with this movie. I thought it was fun. I don't think it's like anything extraordinary or anything super spectacular. So if I was to give this movie a final rating, I think I'm going to give it a solid like 68. It's not really anything special. I feel like none of the characters are going to stick with me relatively well, and for the most part, it's not a movie I'm going to probably be thinking of past the next like 2 weeks from now. But that being said, it's fun. It's definitely a good movie when it comes out on the streaming or whatever. If you just want to like throw it on in the background while you're like doing dishes or something like that, or eating dinner, it'll be a fun movie to just kind of like watch and enjoy the people just kind of going on these fun little rampages. But it's not necessarily one that I think you have to immediately jump to the theaters and go watch this one. But that being said, it's time for Letterboxd time. That's right, I remembered it this time. This one is absolutely hilarious to me. It needs to be studied how hot the cast of this movie is, and it is true because literally every single one of the guys is so attractive, and then like the one female character is a very beautiful actress, and I just thought that was a funny one. And then I also wanted to shout out this little poem one. The gentlemen will get ungentle if traveling continental. When it comes to war, that's what they're for, while also being sentimental. I thought that one was hilarious. And then, like I said, Alan Ritchson's character, Loki, is kind of like a big softie, and I just thought that this poem reminded me of something like he would write, if that makes sense. But yeah, it was still a good time, and I think that there's definitely some fun stuff with this. Like, for one, a lot of people might not know this, but Henry Cavil for the longest time has like been like one of the like top picks for potentially being James Bond, and for whatever reason he's never been James Bond, and they've made, you know, a couple of different movies, and they're trying to like figure out who they're going to make the next like James Bond and stuff like that, and it seems like Henry Cavill just continues to get passed up for that role. And something that I think is interesting is the character who Henry Cavill plays in this movie actually is the person in real life who James Bond is based after, which I think was really interesting. And I like the fact that his wife in this movie is played by a really beautiful actress, and it's kind of like a James Bond girl type, you know, character archetype, which I thought was fun. But yeah, that being said, that was it for this video, guys. Thank you guys so much for coming by and checking it out. I love and appreciate you guys so much for watching. If you liked it, feel free to like and subscribe, and I'll hopefully see you guys in the next one. Peace out. Bow. Bow. Bow.
Back at it again, but that's a relevant flow. So smooth, they calling me Mr. Elegant. Like an elephant, I got a long nose. Like a president, I've got a few hoes. Swift with a stutter, I'm smooth like butter. Don't see it coming when I slip undercover. Like a big dog, but I don't bite. I'm still a big broad, I'd win that fight. Come match you and I knock out your lights.